Hey guys, welcome back. It is True Crime Mystery Wednesday again, second week, and like I promised last week, I have got quite the doozy for you today, and it does involve a possible police cover-up. So stick around till the end because the story just keeps spiraling and spiraling, and it gets worse and worse. It'll make your blood boil. It made me very angry while reading about it. So let's go ahead and jump into the story. Today I'm talking about the murder of Candace Hiltz. Candace and her family were living together in a home in the neighborhood of Copper Gulch in Fremont County, Colorado. Now, Candace was pretty much a child prodigy. She was insanely brilliant, very smart. She was doing calculus at the age of 11. She had skipped multiple grades, and she was just this incredible young lady. All of her friends said that Candace was extremely passionate about standing up to bullies and standing up for the little guy, even though she herself was very short. She was this little spitfire of a girl, and nothing can hold her back. She was just so passionate about everything in life, and because of this passion for sticking up for the little guy, she actually had a dream to become a lawyer, and her ultimate dream was to have a seat on the Supreme Court. Since she had skipped so many grades, she was already a junior at Brigham Young University at the age of 17. But unfortunately at this point, she found herself pregnant and on the road to becoming a single mother. To pile on, she found out that her daughter, who she named Paige, was born with hydrocephaly, which is a buildup of fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, on the brain, and she was not given a great prognosis or very long to live. Candace wanted to spend as much time with her daughter as possible, so she pulled out of school and only started attending online classes. Candace did not find this an issue because since she was so far ahead of all of her other classmates, even taking a few years off, she would just be right back in with her own age group, and that would not have been a bad thing. Now, Candace was planning on possibly applying for Stanford Law School. That was her dream, but she wanted to take some time to spend with her daughter. In 2006, Fremont County Sheriff Deputy Dodd ended up coming to their home to ask Candace's mother about just a few questions about her brother, James. Apparently, Deputy Dodd had suspected that James was involved in trespassing and break-in of a neighboring home. Candace's mother, Dolores, tried to explain to Deputy Dodd that this was not possible because James had severe mental and psychological issues. He had been in and out of Colorado Mental Health Institute multiple times for severe social phobia and anxiety. And in fact, his social phobia was so bad, he couldn't even live with his own family. He had moved into a small house behind the family home because he could not be even with the people that he loved the most. He was struggling that much with his mental health. Therefore, he could not have gone trespassing and broke into a stranger's home. That makes no sense. Definitely would not have happened. But Deputy Dodd started just being exceedingly rude to Dolores, and Candace, who is in the other room, was overhearing the deputy bad-mouthing her brother, calling her mother names, and she did not appreciate this. Like I said, she was a little spitfire, and she did not take bullying. So she went in and started a confrontation with Deputy Dodd. She got very combative, very angry, very fast. And at one point, Deputy Dodd even said, "Look, you need to calm down or I'm going to have to arrest you." At this threat, Candace ended up putting her wrists forward and saying, "Go ahead and arrest me, but I know something that you don't." She told Deputy Dodd that she had seen him around town accepting envelopes from well-known drug dealers in the area, and she threatened to go to the sheriff's department and out him to his other sheriffs. Dodd reportedly became very agitated at this and got very angry and just stormed out of the house and did not come back. 3 days after this incident, the family dog goes missing. And nobody thought much of it at the time. They did live in a mountainous area in Colorado. Mountain lions were known to frequent the area, and they figured Maybe unfortunately the dog got taken by a mountain lion, or maybe it just caught a scent and took off and it'll be back in a few days. They did search the immediate area, but just didn't think too much of it and didn't search any further for the dog. 2 days after this incident, on August 15th of 2006, Dolores left Candace and Paige so that she could run some errands in town. Now, there are a couple of disputes as to what actually happened next. The first thing that I read was Dolores just suddenly started getting really concerned about what Candace was doing. She just felt uneasy, so she called her neighbor to go and check on Candace and Paige while she was running errands, and this was not long after she had left. The neighbor ended up coming to try and check on Candace and Paige, but Candace was nowhere to be found in the home, and he ended up just seeing baby Paige crying in her crib, and he picked her up and took her to his house to be with his wife and him until Dolores could come home, since Candace was nowhere to be found. The other one theory is that never happened. I found many reports that were just back and forth on this, if that actually happened or not. The other one is she never called. She just came home at about 3:30 and heard baby Paige crying from outside. She goes inside to investigate and sees Paige crying and just sees blood everywhere. She sees pools on the floor, there's splatters all over the walls, and it looks like there's drag marks from where a body had been drug off. And she immediately gets concerned, grabs Paige, runs to the neighbors so that they can watch Paige, and she calls the cops. I'm not sure which one is true, but one of them is. So when Dolores dropped Paige off at the neighbors, she came back into the home to search for Candace and unfortunately ended up finding her wrapped in a green blanket and shoved underneath one of the beds in one of the bedrooms. At this point, deputies come and they take the family to the sheriff's office downtown to get some questioning and figure out what possibly could have happened. And 2 deputies were assigned to this case. One was Deputy Briscoe, and the other, who should not have been assigned to this case because he had just had a confrontation with the girl that was murdered, was Deputy Dodd. This is where stuff starts going off the rails, y'all. This is where shit starts getting crazy. I'm sorry for cussing, but this case made me so mad. You have no idea. And it is coming. Just wait. Y'all will start hearing all this crazy stuff that's going on. It's insane. So while they're going to question the family downtown, the cops decide they know exactly who did it. James did it. Obviously, James did it. He just broke into a home, stole some hatchets. Obviously, he went crazy and murdered his sister, which makes absolutely no sense. So they're questioning Dolores about this possible theory, and Dolores is saying, listen to me, this is not possible. He has severe mental health issues. There is no way. He has no access to guns. He's been in and out of the Colorado Health Institute all the time. He is afraid of people. He would not have been doing this, and he also suffers from hallucinations, which at that point you could kind of see maybe if he was hallucinating, he did just kind of snap and do this, but there is hard evidence that he did not do it, so just wait. Now, during this questioning, the deputies also started searching the surrounding properties for anything, and that's where they made another horrific discovery that also points to this being a very well thought out and planned crime. They ended up finding the family dog, and unfortunately someone had tied the dog to a nearby tree with rope, and I'm assuming in order to stay quiet, they hacked the dog to death with a hatchet. So the family ends up getting released to go back to home, and they immediately noticed that the crime scene was not treated well at all. It had not been roped off. There was no tape telling them not to go places. They noticed that significant items that were evidence had been left behind by the cops. Like, they just didn't even care. They found a shotgun shell by Paige's crib. They found multiple other gun shells in front of the fireplace. They had left behind the green blanket that Candace had been wrapped in, which, you know, why would you take that? You know, it might just have evidence from the killer or something on it. I mean, this, Even someone who's not a cop knows to take these things. These are all extremely important, and forensic evidence can be found on these items, but they didn't even think to take them. They also left behind Candace's blood-soaked shirt that she had been wearing at the time of the murder. Another very important item that they found, well, multiple items, were towels that were soaked in Candace's blood, and it was presumed that the killers, with an S, killers, we'll loop back to that at the autopsy. The killers had used these towels to clean up themselves and a little bit of the crime scene before leaving the towels behind. This is incredibly important forensic information and items that they needed to have, and they left them behind. Now the family obviously is furious. They end up collecting all of these items and they record that they have all of these, take pictures of each of the items, and Dolores, fuming, goes to the sheriff's office. She goes to the front desk area and tells them, y'all left a ton of evidence at our house. You need to come and collect it. I have it at the house. I need to speak to somebody because this crime scene was not treated well at all. We need to figure out what's going on. And they ended up sending her home. Yeah, they didn't want to hear from her. They were just like, no thanks. We don't need to hear that. You're good. And completely ignored her and sent her home. Absolutely ridiculous. I told you this case is crazy. It gets even crazier, you guys. I was not kidding. So, the police end up putting out a manhunt for James, trying to find James, because they are dead set that he was the killer at this point. Even though there's no evidence pointing to him, they decide they need to find him, and they have the trespassing and burglary charges that they want to get him on. So they end up issuing a statement also that he is incredibly dangerous. He could have a weapon on him. Do not approach him. Just call the cops. Don't approach him, don't talk to him, only call the cops, and we will get him. They end up finding James 3 days after the crime was committed, and they take him in for questioning. And James had not been around his family at this point. He hadn't really talked to anybody because of his social phobias. So he didn't even know his sister had been murdered. And he asks the police why he's being arrested, and they state, matter-of-factly, you murdered your sister multiple times. They're just reiterating, you murdered her, you murdered Candace, you did this crime, you killed her. And that's not how you conduct an investigation. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Well, I do. It sounds like a cover-up. It gets worse, guys. Anyway, during questioning, they just keep reiterating, James, you killed her, you killed Candace, you did this crime. And they knew that he was in a mentally vulnerable state, that they could have manipulated him very easily. You just keep stating it, and he might end up believing that he committed this crime, even though he didn't. Now, luckily, James did not ever end up admitting to this crime. He kept saying, I did not do this, I have no idea who did this is crazy. But they arrested him anyway for the trespassing and burglary charges, and they held him on $500,000 bond. Now, around this time, the autopsy results come out, and they find out there were 3 different types of guns that were used in the murder of Candace: a shotgun, a medium caliber handgun, and a small caliber handgun. And due to blood splatter analysis, they were able to determine that she was shot in the face, above the bridge of the nose, with a shotgun, and the back of the head with the small caliber at the exact same time, which means there has to be a minimum of 2 killers, which should also rule out James on multiple reasons. 1, he didn't have access to 1 gun, let alone getting 3 different kinds of guns. That would make no sense. And due to his social phobias, who the heck would he have had come with him to murder his sister? Even if it was a hallucinatory break, there is no way that he would have, and the premeditation part of killing the dog, none of this makes sense. But the cops are still pushing, oh, he's the #1 suspect. For some reason, even though all the evidence points to him not being the killer, they're gonna keep pushing with this theory. Makes no sense. But let's keep going, shall we? Now, she was shot once in the bridge of the nose with a shotgun, 5 times in the back of the head with a small caliber, and once with the medium caliber straight through her heart. Roughly 75% of her head was gone, so this was a brutal, angry crime. At this time, James ended up being found not guilty on reason of sanity for his trespassing and burglary. He was not even fit to stand trial at this point, and he was sentenced to Colorado Mental Health Institute, again, where he was a regular, where they would start treatment and working with him on all of his issues again. Now, 5 months after Candace's death, Dolores ended up filing a complaint with the District Attorney General's office against the police department for not taking proper care of her daughter's murder case. She provided the photos of the evidence as proof that they clearly were not caring about it, clearly weren't handling it well, and she wanted them to be brought to justice. She wanted somebody to take over the case that would actually know what they were doing and continue to fight to find answers for Candace and her family. Now, for a while, the case went completely cold and nothing came of it until a little over 10 years later, December 17th of 2016, a man bought a storage unit in an auction. The man's name was Rick Ratzclaff. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. I apologize. And he bought this unit for only $50. And when he went inside the unit for the first time to fully investigate what all he had bought, he found some police uniforms and the lights that go on top of the cop cars. So he knew that it was some cop's unit. And when he started doing a little bit more digging, he ended up finding some manila envelopes that were labeled evidence. Now, what was official police evidence doing outside of the police's jurisdiction and in somebody's personal storage unit? Now, Rick ended up opening these manila envelopes because he did own the storage unit and everything that was inside, and he wanted to check if it was actual evidence or not. Inside, he found the bloody rope of the dog that was tied to the tree, the hatchet that was used to kill the dog, as well as Candace's bloody socks. Now, this evidence was obviously a part of the Candace Hiltz investigation, and this was still an open and ongoing investigation. This should not have been out of police's custody. It should have been in the evidence lockers, and for some reason, it was in this random storage unit. So Rick started doing a little bit of digging, and he ended up finding the name of the person who owned the storage unit before it went up for auction. Anyone have any guesses as to the guy's name? Deputy Dobbs. Shocker. He ended up calling the police and getting them to come down to the unit, and him and his wife decided to record the conversation just in case, because they knew at this point, everyone in town knew that this police force in their town was insanely corrupt. It was kind of just a well-known thing. The guy, the head chief that was in charge, since he's been in charge since like 2000, I think, there was a huge uptick in unsolved murders. Drug crimes went through the roof, regular stealing and theft went through the just crimes were on skyrocket in this town, and they knew that the police force was behind it. So when the police came down and they were recording the conversation, you can hear on the recording that the police ended up getting very angry, very confrontational, and told Rick to keep his mouth shut if he knew what was best for him. Now that sounds like a threat from the police force, but they didn't have the jurisdiction or the authority to take the evidence back. Now, Rick ended up taking all of this evidence to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and that entity ended up starting an investigation into the mishandling of information and the corruption in the town's police force. Obviously, Dodd was questioned why he had taken evidence from an ongoing investigation out of the police's evidence locker and into a personal storage locker room, and his excuse was he was going to have more photos taken of the evidence, but he just never got around to it. Now, does anyone believe that? Are you freaking kidding me? Oh my goodness, does he think that people are stupid? I mean, oh my god. Guys, this case makes me so mad. April 2017, Dodd was placed on paid administrative leave for unrelated reasons. Sure, tell yourself what you need. And in May, he was forced to retire. On June 28th of 2018, Dodd was found guilty of 3 of the 4 charges of unauthorized personal possession of evidence of an unsolved crime. Now, to get more technical, these were actually, I'm just gonna read them. It was abuse of public records for altering a homicide case file and 2 petty counts of second-degree official misconduct for failure to properly handle potential evidence. Now, of course, Sucker's not going to take that lying down, and he appeals it. Dude was only sentenced to 15 days in jail and a $1,000 fine, but he appeals it. And I don't know why they didn't take this even further and start investigating Candace Hiltz murder themselves or given it to a different organization, because it seems like Dodd is involved in this point. I mean, you have to see through that, but I don't know what's going on in this freaking case. Now, y'all thought the story was done. No, it's not. There's plenty more. Later, a landfill worker named Robert Orton, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, he found some suspicious stuff that they were attempting to dump. Now, you know how you can rent those big dumpsters to throw stuff in if you're like moving or something? You just throw a bunch of trash in it and they take it to the landfill. So the workers there, they have to get into those and sort the trash, make sure there's no recyclables, anything that's potentially bad, going into the landfills. And that's where Robert Orton found some suspicious things. They looked like official police, just investigations, paperwork, just a bunch of stuff that he found in this trash. And he went to tell his supervisor, and the supervisor said, you know what, don't bother with it. Like, just throw it out. We don't need to get involved in this. Luckily, Robert didn't feel comfortable getting rid of this evidence. So he tries to contact the district attorney's office, but nobody ever returns his calls. So he ends up going to Rick, the guy that found the storage unit. Rick ended up calling Tracy Harmon, who was a reporter for the local news source, the Pueblo Chieftain. Together they gathered a lot of evidence. I'm just gonna read a list of the stuff that they found. They found a computer, an envelope marked evidence that contained a DVD, a videotape labeled as containing a sexual assault investigation interview. You would think that's extremely important. And a tackle box marked FCSO Crime Scene Unit Forensic Flights. And they found a bunch of paperwork that was labeled from the years 2003 and 2006. Turns out that Deputy Dodd had already fled the area, and he moved, I believe what I read was Texas. Hi, buddy. You coming in to say some stuff with me? Hi, come here. What are you doing? What are you doing? We're taking a chief break. Hi, buddy. Is this a chief break? Hi, buddy. Yeah. Hi. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, you're tired. Look at that tail wag. Hi, buddy. Okay, get up on there. Or out. Do something. Good boy. We now return to our regularly programmed entertainment. Sorry for the distraction. So Dodd had apparently told his wife she needed to clear out a bunch of stuff that was in their house, and she got rid of all of this stuff, and it was just on his orders. He just told her, you need to throw all this stuff away. Why would you need to throw away official police investigations and paperwork? Why would... Guys, he's clearly involved. Like, come on. There have been no updates in this case since 2018. The only kind of recent thing was in March of 2019, Dobbs's charges were upheld from his appeal, but they have not selected a date to go back to court to redo the sentencing. So that's really the only update there is, which is so frustrating. Now, another really suspicious thing is if you go to the... You coming back? He's getting on the futon in this room. Okay, good boy. He's just gonna watch me for the rest of this video, so it's gonna get really awkward. Hi, bud. If you go to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation page and you go into unsolved crimes and cold cases, you will not find Candace Hiltz' name or any information on the case at all, even though it is an unsolved cold case in Colorado. I have no idea what that has to do with. I don't know if for some reason these cops and Dobbs had something to do with it. That's insane. This whole case just drives me nuts. Now, the theories on this case, there's really only 3 people that are suspects. First is James Hiltz, but we've discussed why he can't possibly have done it, his mental illnesses, and the fact that multiple people, Chief, you can't growl during my video. Stop. And the fact that multiple people committed this murder simultaneously, and James didn't have any friends. I honestly completely rule James out. It does not make any sense to me. How did he get the guns? Why would he have killed the family dog? Because the dog wouldn't have alerted that he was there, because it was the family dog. He knew him. It makes no sense. No sense. Obviously something else was going on. The other theory obviously is Deputy Dodd, which it really seems like he had a heavy hand in this. And the last person is Paige, Candace's daughter, Paige's father, but there's really nothing backing that up. I think that's just people grasping for straws. It doesn't make any sense. What I think happened, and what I haven't really read about, and I don't know why I haven't read about this. I'm sure there's a theory out there somewhere, but what I think happened is Dodd left the house and told the drug dealers that he had a thing with, that he was accepting money from to keep them under wraps. I think he told them that they had a problem and there was somebody that had witnessed them exchanging money, and I think he had the drug dealers do it. That's just my opinion. I think that's what happened, hands down. I don't think Dodd got his hands dirty. I don't think he did it himself, but I do think that he was very strategic in, keeping all the evidence under wraps, misplacing evidence, making sure that evidence wasn't collected. I think he had a heavy hand in covering his tracks, but I think it was the drug dealers that he had to deal with. I think he told them they got a problem, they need to fix it, and they came and killed Candace, who had such a bright future. It is such a shame that she had to go out in that way. I pray for the family, and it's just horrible. I think the worst part of this is James has been up for release from the hospital multiple times now. He's completed treatment, he's doing exceptionally well. The doctors all say that he's doing better, but every time he comes up for a potential release, the cops in the town head down to the hospital and explain that he is the #1 suspect in this Candace Hiltz case, and they say he is too dangerous to release onto the streets, and he is still there to this day, and that makes my blood boil. That makes me so mad. I feel so bad for Dolores. She lost 2 kids that day. That is not fair. I hope this case made you guys as angry as it makes me, so that I'm a little less crazy, because this case has made me so mad since when I first heard about it and started the research myself. It's absolutely crazy. So what do y'all think? Do you think that James could have possibly done it? Am I overlooking something? Do you think that Dodd did it himself and got his hands dirty? Or do you think, like I do, that the drug dealers probably did it? Let me know in the comments below. And next week, I will be back. I actually am working on a possible unsolved serial killer who focused on red-headed women, and he was frequent in the Tennessee area. So I hope y'all tune in next week for our next True Crime Mystery Wednesday. Y'all have a great week.